Ryan lived on the edge of the colony, where the hills met a wide green valley. Most settlers stayed near the main outpost because they liked safety and comfort, but Ryan was different. He was curious. He liked to walk alone in the wild places, to listen to the strange sounds of this new planet and to watch the glowing rivers that ran between the rocks. He often felt that the world was speaking in its own quiet language, waiting for someone to notice. One morning, when the sky was bright with 2 suns, Ryan went farther than usual. He followed a narrow path that led him to a river. The water shone with a faint blue light as if tiny stars were trapped inside it. Birds with long wings flew above and small creatures jumped across the stones. Everything felt alive and full of secrets. As he walked along the riverbank, Ryan noticed something unusual. At first, he thought it was a fallen branch caught in the reeds. But when he moved closer, he stopped in surprise. Lying half hidden among the tall grass was a figure. It was not a branch and it was not a human. It was a girl. An alien girl. Her skin glimmered silver under the sunlight, soft like moonlight on water. Her hair looked like fine threads of crystal, glowing faintly as the wind touched them. She wore clothes made from a strange fabric that shimmered like woven light, but they were torn and faded. Her eyes were closed and her body seemed weak. Ryan's heart raced. He had heard rumors before. Some settlers whispered that the planet was not empty, that beings lived here long before humans arrived. No one had proof, and the leaders of the colony always said the land was safe. But now Ryan knew the truth. The girl was breathing, but her breaths were small and uneven. She looked like she needed help. For a moment, Ryan thought about calling the outpost, but then he hesitated. If he told the colony leaders, they might take the girl away, study her, and keep her locked up. Something inside him told him that would be wrong. He looked at her again. She was just a girl, different, yes, but not dangerous. She looked lost and fragile. Ryan bent down and gently lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost weightless, as if her body was made for a different kind of air. Carefully, he carried her away from the river, through the trees and toward his small shelter. Ryan's shelter stood at the edge of the valley, hidden under tall rock walls. It was simple but safe. He laid the girl on his bedroll, gave her water in a small cup, and waited. For a long while, she stayed still, but slowly her eyelids fluttered. She opened her eyes and Ryan froze. Her eyes glowed like soft blue lights, bright and calm as if they carried the reflection of the stars. At first, she looked afraid. Her gaze moved quickly around the room, then settled on Ryan. He raised his hand slightly, trying to show he meant no harm. "You are safe," he said softly. He did not know if she could understand, but his voice was gentle. The girl blinked. Her lips moved, and she whispered something in a voice that sounded like running water over smooth stones. The words were strange, but the tone was clear. It was gratitude. Over the next few days, Ryan cared for her. He gave her food, simple fruits and bread. At first, she only touched them carefully, unsure, but later she began to eat. She watched him closely and tried to copy the way he moved. When he smiled, she smiled back, a little shy but warm. Though they did not share language, they found small ways to understand each other. She touched her chest and spoke a soft word. Ryan guessed it was her name, though he could not say it right. Still, she laughed when he tried, and that laugh sounded like a melody in the wind. Ryan felt something unusual inside him. He had always thought aliens would be strange and distant, but this girl was not so different. She had fear, trust, and joy in her eyes. She looked at the sky the same way he did, with wonder. He began to realize that loneliness was not only human. One evening, when the twin moons rose and the valley glowed silver, the girl reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, and her touch carried trust. Ryan understood at once. She believed in him. What Ryan did not know was that this single act of kindness, saving the girl at the river, was only the beginning. For far beyond the hills, others were watching. A hidden tribe of women had seen what he had done, and very soon they would come to him. Ryan's days changed after he found the alien girl. He no longer wandered far just for curiosity, but instead he stayed close to his shelter, making sure she was safe and cared for. She grew stronger each day, though she still moved with careful steps, as if her body was light and not used to the heavy pull of the planet. Sometimes she would stand by the river and hold her hands above the glowing water. The blue light in the river seemed to answer her, rising a little brighter whenever she touched the air above it. Ryan watched in silence, amazed. She was connected to this world in a way he could not understand. She tried to share her words with him. Every evening, she would point at things and say their names in her language. She would point at the moon, at the fire, at the trees, and then look at him, waiting for him to repeat. Ryan would laugh when he said them wrong, and she would laugh too, her voice like a small song. Slowly, they began to create a bridge of understanding. One night, as they sat by the fire, Ryan pointed to himself. "Ryan," he said. Then he pointed to her. She smiled, touched her chest, and spoke her name again. It was soft and flowing, almost like Era. Ryan tried to say it, and though his tongue could not shape it perfectly, she nodded happily. That was the first time he felt they were no longer strangers. But something else was happening in the valley. Ryan began to notice signs that he was not alone. At dawn, when the mist lay low on the grass, he sometimes saw footprints that were not his and not Era's. The prints were small and light, shaped differently from human boots. Once he found a circle of stones near the river that he had never placed there. It looked as if someone had arranged them carefully during the night. Another time, when he returned from gathering fruit, he found fresh flowers placed outside his shelter. They were tied together with thin, glowing threads that looked like crystal. Era saw them too, and her eyes softened with recognition. She picked up the flowers, touched them to her forehead, and whispered something. Ryan watched her closely. "Do you know who left them?" he asked, though he knew she might not understand. She looked at him, then pointed toward the distant hills. Her face showed both comfort and worry, as if she knew something he did not. The days passed, and Ryan grew more certain that unseen eyes were watching. When he worked near the trees, he sometimes felt the air move as if someone had just stepped away. At night, he heard faint voices carried by the wind, soft and distant like a group singing. He tried to follow the sound once, but the moment he left the light of his fire, the voices faded. Still, there was no harm. The presence felt quiet, patient, almost protective. Ryan began to think that Era was not alone in this world. Perhaps her people were near, waiting for the right moment to come forward. One afternoon, while Era was sitting near the glowing river, she placed her hand on the water. The light spread in ripples, and she looked at Ryan with calm eyes. Then she spoke one word slowly, almost as if she wanted him to understand it deeply. "Tribe," she said in her own soft tone. But the meaning reached him. Ryan felt a shiver of realization. So she was part of a tribe, a group of her people, and if a tribe existed, then they might be the ones watching. That night, Ryan found it hard to sleep. He lay awake under the soft roof of his shelter, listening to the sounds outside. The night was peaceful, but he felt movement in the distance, the sound of light steps on the grass. He thought he saw figures far beyond the firelight, shapes moving like shadows among the trees. When morning came, he stepped outside and found something waiting again. This time it was not flowers, but a small carved stone, smooth and glowing faintly blue. On its surface was a pattern, spirals and circles that reminded him of stars. Era picked up the stone and held it close to her chest. She looked at Ryan, her eyes filled with meaning, though she spoke no word. Ryan understood without needing explanation. Whoever was leaving these gifts was connected to her, and soon they would not remain hidden. The valley was no longer quiet. Something was coming, something that would change his life completely. The morning sky was clear, painted with soft golden light from the twin suns. Ryan stepped outside his shelter and felt the stillness of the valley. It was too quiet, almost as if the land itself was waiting. He looked at Era, who stood near the river. She held the small glowing stone they had found the day before. Her face was calm, but her eyes were thoughtful, as if she already knew what would happen next. For the last several nights, Ryan had noticed shadows near the hills and faint voices carried by the wind. He had seen the flowers, the carved stone, and the footprints that appeared and disappeared without a trace. Whoever had left those signs was close now. He could feel it. That afternoon, as the sun reached high, Ryan and Era walked along the glowing river. They followed it to where it bent between two tall cliffs. The air was cool there, and the water shimmered more brightly than anywhere else. Era touched the surface with her fingers, and suddenly the ripples carried further, spreading in circles that glowed like silver fire across the water. Ryan watched with wide eyes. "Are you calling someone?" he asked softly. Era looked at him and nodded once. She whispered her word again, the word she had taught him earlier. "Tribe." Ryan's breath caught. He turned his gaze back to the cliffs, and that was when he saw them. Figures appeared silently from the shadows. They stepped forward with graceful movement, their silver skin glimmering under the light. There were many of them, all women, dressed in flowing garments made from the same shining fabric as Era's. Their eyes glowed softly in shades of blue and green, and their hair shone like crystal threads. Rian froze, unsure what to do. He counted at least a dozen of them, maybe more. They surrounded the river bend in a half circle, watching him with calm expressions. None of them spoke at first. The only sound was the gentle flow of the river. Era stepped forward, lifting the glowing stone in her hand. She spoke in her language, her voice steady but filled with emotion. The women responded together with soft words, a sound that seemed like music carried on the wind. One of them, taller than the rest, moved closer. She had long silver hair that reached her waist and eyes that glowed a deeper blue. She looked at Ryan for a long moment, her gaze both sharp and kind. Then she spoke to Era, and Era answered quickly. They exchanged words back and forth, voices rising and falling like waves. Rian stood still, not wanting to interrupt. He felt both nervous and curious. These women were not hostile. Their presence was calm, even graceful, yet their silent unity made him feel very small. Finally, Era turned back to him. She placed her hand gently on his arm and smiled. Then she pointed at the tall woman and spoke slowly, trying to help him understand. Leader, she said, forming the word carefully. Ryan nodded. So this was the leader of the tribe. The leader stepped closer to him. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes studied him with care. After a moment, she raised her hand, palm open. Ryan hesitated, then did the same. Their hands hovered near each other without touching. Somehow he felt a silent message pass between them. Acknowledgement, trust, and curiosity. The other women relaxed slightly, their glowing eyes softer now. Some of them smiled faintly, and Ryan realized they were not here to harm him. They were here because of Ira. Era spoke again, pointing at Rian. She said his name with clarity. Rian. The leader repeated it, though her voice shaped it differently, like a gentle echo. Then she spoke in her own language, and Era translated in her simple way. She pointed to Ryan's chest and then to the river, then placed her hand over her heart. Ryan did not understand all the words, but the meaning was clear enough. They were grateful. The tribe knew he had saved Era, and they had come to see the human who had shown kindness to one of their own. Rian's tension eased. He nodded to them, though he was still unsure how to speak across the barrier of languages. She is safe with me, he said softly, hoping they would feel the truth of his words. The leader watched him for a moment longer, then lowered her hand. She spoke to her people, and the women slowly stepped back, forming a wide circle around Era and Rian. It felt like a gathering, not a warning. As the sun dipped lower, the tribe began to sing, their voices blended together, rising in harmony. The sound carried across the valley like a soft wave of light. Ryan had never heard anything so beautiful. He realized then that his life had already changed. He had not only saved one girl, he had been accepted, at least for this moment, into the notice of an entire tribe that lived hidden in the valley. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. After the first meeting by the river, Ryan's thoughts were restless. The tribe of women had appeared and then vanished back into the hills, moving as quietly as the wind. Their voices still echoed in his memory, soft and musical, carrying a feeling of welcome that words alone could not explain. Era seemed calmer now. She no longer looked worried when the strange gifts appeared outside the shelter. Instead, she smiled knowingly, as if everything was part of a plan. Ryan wanted to ask her more, but his words were not enough. Still, he trusted that she would tell him in her own way when the time was right. The following evening, when the twin moons rose together, a soft glow spread across the valley. Ryan and Era sat near the fire outside the shelter. Suddenly, a gentle sound carried on the wind, a humming like many voices singing in harmony. Ryan looked toward the hills and saw faint lights moving among the trees. This time the tribe did not remain distant. They walked into the valley, their glowing garments shimmering under the moonlight. The leader, tall with her silver hair flowing, walked at the front. The women carried no tools or weapons. They carried only light in their hands, glowing stones like the one Era treasured. Rian stood uncertain. Ira touched his arm to reassure him, then stepped forward to greet her people. She spoke quickly in their language, her voice rising and falling in soft tones. The women answered with warm smiles and soft words. Then the leader turned her glowing eyes toward Rian. She raised her hand and gestured for him to follow. Ira looked at him, nodding gently, and said one clear word that he understood without trouble. "Come." Ryan hesitated for a moment, but curiosity was stronger than fear. He walked beside Ira as the women led them toward the hills. The path wound through tall grass that sparkled under the moonlight. Fireflies with silver wings drifted in the air, guiding their way. The valley felt alive as if it was celebrating their steps. They reached a wide clearing hidden between the cliffs. In the center stood tall crystal-like stones arranged in a circle. Each stone glowed softly, casting gentle light on the faces of the women gathered there. It was not a village in the way Ryan knew. There were no houses or walls. Instead, the place felt open, natural, and sacred, as if it belonged to both the earth and the stars. The women gathered in the circle, and Ira guided Rian inside. He felt their eyes on him, curious but not unkind. Some of them whispered his name softly, shaping it like a song. Ryan. He was surprised at how quickly they had learned it. The leader stepped forward again. She looked at him for a long moment, then placed her hand on the glowing stone in the center of the circle. The stone brightened, sending ripples of light across the ground. She spoke in her language, her voice steady and clear. Though Rian could not understand the words, he felt the meaning. Ira turned to him and translated in her own way. She pointed to the leader, then to the women, and finally to herself. Then she touched Ryan's chest and smiled. She formed a single word carefully in his language. Welcome. The tribe's voices rose together, repeating the same word in their own tones. The sound wrapped around Ryan like a warm wave. For the first time, he realized they were not just acknowledging him, they were inviting him. He was being accepted into their circle, even though he was not one of them. Rian felt both honored and humbled. He had come to this world as a settler, just one man among many humans. Yet now he stood in the heart of a hidden tribe, surrounded by women who had lived here long before his people arrived. And instead of fear or distance, they offered him welcome. After the gathering, the women shared fruits that glowed faintly, food from the valley that Ryan had never seen before. The taste was sweet and light, unlike anything from the colony. As they ate, laughter filled the air. Ira sat beside him, smiling with joy, her eyes brighter than ever. Rian looked around and wondered what the future held. He had thought he was alone on this strange planet, apart from his colony, but now he knew the truth. He was part of something greater. The tribe had stepped out of the shadows, and they had chosen to include him. That night, as he walked back to his shelter with Ira by his side, Ryan looked at the stars and felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. And deep in his heart, he knew that this was only the beginning of his journey with them. The next days felt different for Rian. The valley that once seemed quiet now felt alive with hidden meaning. The tribe no longer stayed far away. Instead, they appeared often near his shelter, leaving signs of their presence. Sometimes they brought fruits that glowed with soft light. Other times they left carved stones with patterns of stars. Each gift carried care, and each gift told Rian that they were watching him with kindness. Ira seemed happier too. She walked with more energy, and her laughter came more easily. She spoke often with her people when they visited, their voices flowing like music. Though Rian could not understand their words, he felt their closeness. It was clear to him that Ira was not just one among them. She was someone special. One evening, the leader of the tribe came again. She was calm, her silver hair shining under the twin moons. She gestured for Ryan to follow, and Ira joined by his side. Together they walked through the valley until they reached the circle of glowing stones once more. This time the tribe was gathered in greater numbers. Dozens of women stood in the circle, their eyes glowing softly in the night. The leader placed her hand on the tallest crystal and began to speak. Her words flowed in a steady rhythm, and the women answered with soft tones. The air seemed to hum with energy, as if the very ground was listening. Rian watched, unsure of what the ceremony meant. Ira turned to him and tried to explain in simple words. She touched her heart and then pointed to the sky. Then she drew a shape in the air like a circle with stars inside it. Ryan frowned, trying to understand. Finally, she whispered a word carefully in his language. Home. Ryan's heart stirred. Did she mean this valley was their home? Or did she mean the stars above, a place far beyond? The leader finished speaking and then she walked to Ryan. Slowly, she held out a small crystal stone glowing faint blue. Ryan hesitated, then took it in his hands. The stone felt warm, alive, as if it carried the energy of the valley itself. Era smiled and nodded, as though telling him to keep it. "Gift," she said softly. The tribe began to sing, their voices blending in harmony. The sound filled the valley like a gentle wave, wrapping Ryan in peace. He felt something shift inside him, a sense that he had crossed a line. He was no longer just a visitor. He was now connected to their secrets. That night after the gathering ended, Ryan asked Era as they walked back, "Why me?" She looked at him with her glowing blue eyes, and though her words were simple, they carried deep meaning. "Kind," she said, touching his hand gently. "You save." Ryan thought about it as they returned to the shelter. He had only followed his heart that day by the river. He had seen someone in need and helped her, yet that choice had changed everything. The next morning, Ryan woke to find Era waiting outside. She pointed toward the hills where mist rolled down in silver waves. She spoke softly, her tone excited. "Show." Curious, Ryan followed her. They walked along hidden paths until they reached a high place overlooking the valley. From there, the land spread wide. Green fields and glowing rivers stretching under the twin suns. Ira raised her hand, pointing to different places. She showed him caves hidden under cliffs where crystals shone like lanterns. She showed him trees with leaves that shimmered in many colors. She showed him the quiet lakes that reflected the stars even in the daylight. Each place carried beauty that no human colony had ever seen. As Ryan stood beside her, he realized the truth. The tribe had lived here for generations, quietly, peacefully, in harmony with the land. The humans who had come to settle thought this world was empty, but it was not. It belonged to the tribe, and they had chosen to remain hidden. Era looked at him, her voice soft. "You see now," she said. Ryan nodded slowly. Yes, he saw. He saw the secret of the valley and the treasure of the people who called it home. He also understood why they had appeared to him. He was not just another settler to them anymore. He was a bridge between two worlds, and though he did not know what the future would bring, he felt ready to walk the path with them. Days passed, and Ryan's bond with the tribe grew stronger. At first, he had felt like a visitor in their world, but now he felt more like a part of it. The women greeted him warmly whenever he walked into their circle, and some even tried to teach him words in their language. Their voices carried patience, as though they truly wanted him to understand. Ryan learned simple names for things. They showed him the word for water, the word for tree, the word for star. Each time he repeated them, the tribe laughed softly, not to mock him but to encourage him. Even the leader, who often stayed serious, smiled when he managed to say the words correctly. Era stayed by his side always. She seemed proud whenever he learned something new. Sometimes she guided his hand to draw symbols in the sand, teaching him how their language looked when written. The shapes were beautiful, full of spirals and flowing lines, almost like the patterns of rivers. One evening, as the moons rose together, the tribe gathered in the glowing stone circle again. This time, Ryan was asked to join in a new way. The leader placed a crystal bowl in the center, filled with clear water from the shining river. Ira touched the surface, and ripples of light spread through it. Then the leader gestured for Ryan to do the same. He hesitated, but Era nodded at him. Slowly, Ryan placed his hand above the bowl. To his surprise, the water glowed softly under his touch, just as it had for Era. The women around the circle gasped gently, their eyes bright with wonder. The leader looked at him with approval, as though this small act meant more than he understood. After the ceremony, Era explained as best as she could. "Water, listen," she said, pointing to the bowl. "You will part." Ryan thought about her words. Somehow, the valley itself seemed to accept him, just as the tribe had. He did not know why, but he felt the truth of it in his heart. In the days that followed, Ryan joined the tribe in their daily life. They showed him how they gathered fruits that glowed faintly in the dark, how they shaped crystal threads into strong fabric, and how they sang to the river to guide its light. Each task was done with harmony and patience, no rush, no conflict. It was a way of life so different from the busy colony, where people always worried about building more and controlling more. Ryan began to notice something else as well. The women were not only connected to the valley, but also to each other. When one sang, the others followed in harmony. When one worked, the others joined without words. It was as if they all shared one heart, moving together like waves of the same ocean. At night, when Ryan returned to his shelter, he often thought about his own people. The colony lived with rules, machines, and endless tasks. They never listened to the land, never noticed the quiet wonders of this world. He wondered what would happen if they knew about the tribe. Would they try to control it, or could they learn from it? One night, as Ryan sat outside under the stars, Ira joined him. She looked at the sky with glowing eyes and whispered, "You stay?" The question surprised him. He looked at her, seeing the hope in her face. She was asking if he would remain with them, not just for now but for longer as part of their life. Ryan smiled softly. "I want to," he said honestly. "This place feels right." Era touched his hand gently, her crystal-like hair shining under the moonlight. She said nothing more, but her smile was brighter than any word could be. In that moment, Ryan knew his choice. The valley was no longer just a place he visited. It had become his home, and the tribe had become his family. Yet somewhere deep inside, he felt a question rising. What would happen when the colony learned about the tribe? Could these two worlds meet without fear? He did not know the answer, but he knew one thing for certain. He would stand with Era and her people no matter what came. Morning light spread softly over the valley, and the river glowed like a silver path through the land. Ryan woke early, feeling a sense of calm and belonging. Life with the tribe had become natural for him. He helped them gather fruit, carried water from the river, and even joined their songs during the evening ceremonies. The women no longer looked at him as a visitor. They welcomed him as one of their own. Some of the younger ones often walked with him, asking him to repeat words from his language, laughing when his accent made their words sound unusual. The older women watched with kind smiles, pleased at how quickly he had become part of their daily life. But the peace of the valley did not last forever. One afternoon, as Ryan and Era sat near the glowing river, they noticed something unusual in the distance. A bright light flickered above the trees, too steady to be from nature. Ryan's heart sank. He knew that light. It was the signal of a colony drone. The colony must have sent it to search the area. Perhaps they had noticed his long absence, or maybe they had tracked his signal. Whatever the reason, the sight filled him with unease. Era noticed his expression. "Your people?" she asked softly. "Yes," Ryan admitted. "They are looking for me." The news spread quickly through the tribe. The leader gathered the women in the stone circle, her face calm but thoughtful. She looked at Ryan with eyes that held both trust and worry. "They come?" she asked simply. Ryan nodded. "Maybe soon." For a long moment, silence filled the circle. Then the leader placed her hand over her heart and said, "We trust." She looked at Era, then back at Ryan, as though to say that their bond was stronger than fear. Still, Ryan felt the weight of the situation. The colony would not understand the tribe. They would see the glowing valley, the crystal-like people, and think of resources or control. They would not see the harmony, the beauty, the way of life. That night, Ryan could not sleep. He walked by the river, the moons reflecting in its glowing surface. Ira followed him, her presence quiet but steady. "You fear," she said softly. "Yes," Ryan admitted. "I fear my people will not understand. They may not see you as I do." Ira tilted her head, studying him. "You speak, you show. They listen." Ryan thought about it. Could he convince the colony to respect the tribe? Could he stand between the two worlds without losing one? He did not know, but he realized he had to try. The next day, the drone returned, flying lower this time. It circled above the valley, its camera glinting in the light. The tribe watched silently from the shadows of the trees, their glowing features hidden from sight. Only Ryan stood in the open, raising his hand as if to signal the machine. The drone paused, scanning him, then flew back toward the direction of the colony. Ryan knew this was only the beginning. The colony would come soon, and he would have to face them. Later, as he sat with Era, she placed a hand on his arm. "We not hide," she said firmly. "This home, we stay." Her words gave Ryan strength. He realized the tribe had no fear of the future. They trusted the valley and the bond they shared with it. Now it was his turn to trust as well. That evening, the leader gathered everyone for a ceremony. The glowing bowl of water was placed in the center again. This time she gestured for both Ryan and Era to place their hands on it together. When they did, the water shone brighter than before, casting light across every face in the circle. It was a silent message, one Ryan understood clearly. They were connected now, him, Era, and the tribe. No matter what arrived from the outside world, their bond was strong enough to face it. As the moons rose higher, Ryan looked to the horizon. He could almost feel the colony moving closer step by step, light by light. Change was coming, but this time he was ready to meet it. Not as a man caught between two worlds, but as someone who carried both within him. The next morning, the valley felt alive. Birds with long silver wings glided through the glowing rivers, and flowers swayed gently as if they were welcoming the new day. Ryan stood near his shelter, looking toward the hills where the colony might appear. He felt calm even though he knew change was coming. Era joined him, her crystal-like hair shining under the light of the twin suns. She touched his hand gently and smiled. Her eyes seemed to say the same thing he felt in his heart. Together they could face anything. As the day progressed, faint sounds reached Ryan from the distance. It was the colony, moving slowly toward the valley. But instead of fear, Ryan felt determination. He had come to love this place, and he had come to care for the tribe that had trusted him. He would not let misunderstanding break the harmony they had built. He gathered the tribe at the glowing stone circle. The women stood quietly, their glowing eyes reflecting trust and patience. The leader, with her calm and graceful presence, motioned for Ryan to speak. His voice was steady, though he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. "My people are coming," he said. "They do not know your ways, but I will show them. I will help them understand." The women listened in silence. Ira touched his arm gently as if giving him courage. Then the leader placed her hand over his, a gesture of trust. By late afternoon, the colony arrived. Their machines and tools looked out of place among the glowing valley, but Ryan stepped forward, standing firmly. The colony's leader saw him and paused. Ryan spoke clearly, pointing to the tribe and then to the valley. He told them, using simple words, that the valley was home to a hidden people. He explained how they lived in harmony with the land, how they cared for the rivers, the trees, and the glowing plants. His words were careful, patient, and honest. The tribe remained in the circle, quiet but present. Ira and the women did not hide, showing trust in Ryan and in the truth he spoke. Slowly, the colony began to lower their machines, watching the tribe with curiosity instead of fear. One of the younger colonists stepped forward and tried to communicate with the women. At first, the words were awkward, but the women responded in their own language, soft and melodic. Ryan and Era acted as bridges, helping both sides understand. By evening, a peaceful understanding had begun. The colony saw that the tribe was not dangerous. They saw that this valley was special, a place of life and balance, and that it had been here long before humans arrived. They began to ask questions, and the tribe, guided by Ryan and Era, answered. For the first time, the two worlds met without fear. The valley remained glowing, untouched, as a symbol of trust and cooperation. Ryan felt a deep sense of pride. He had saved Ira, yes, but he had also helped her people and his own people understand each other. As the twin moons rose that evening, the tribe gathered in the stone circle again. Ryan and Era stood at the center. The glowing water bowl was placed before them. They both touched it together, and the light spread across the valley. The women sang softly, and for the first time, some of the colonists joined in, their voices blending with the tribe's in gentle harmony. Ryan looked around at the faces, Ira, the tribe, the colony, and realized something wonderful. This valley was more than just land. It was a place of connection, a home where differences were embraced. And he, a simple settler who had once wandered alone, had become part of its story. Era smiled up at him, her glowing eyes full of warmth. "Together," she whispered. "Yes," Ryan said, his voice strong. Together. The colony stayed longer than expected, learning from the tribe and from Ryan. They promised to protect the valley and its people, not just as settlers but as friends. That night, as the stars reflected in the glowing river, Ryan knew life had changed forever. The valley, the tribe, and the humans were connected now, stronger together. And for the first time he felt that the future was bright, full of promise and harmony. In the heart of the valley, under the twin moons, a new chapter had begun.